Alright, so today I'm going to be changing the rear brake pads on this Mk5 GTI. But just before I do that, I'm going to give the car a quick wash, so stay tuned. Alright, so now that the wheel is off, I'm going to be removing these two 13mm bolts. There's one here and there's another one here. So at first I was using a wrench to remove the bolt, but as you can see, the locking nut is also turning along with the bolt. So I'm just going to use a pliers to hold the locking nut. So I loosened the bolt a little bit, just enough so that I could fit another wrench on the locking nut, and this is a lot easier to use to hold the locking nut. So before I loosened the bolt with the pliers and the wrench combination, I tried to fit a wrench but it wasn't able to fit, so that's why I used the pliers first and then I moved on to the wrench afterwards. And then I basically used the same technique to remove the other bolt at the bottom. Once the two bolts are removed, then I can remove the brake caliper. Sometimes the brake caliper is a bit hard to come off, so I'd use a pry bar or a screwdriver to pry it off. But in this case, I'm able to pull and wiggle it off. I use a bungee cord to hold and support the brake caliper, that way I don't put too much stress on the brake lines. So I removed the old brake pads and now it's time to retract the brake piston. So this is a tool that I'm going to be using, and this tool, it basically push and turn the piston at the same time. And this is what it should look like when the piston is pushed all the way back in. I remove the brake brackets so that I'm able to apply the grease properly. The grease will create a slippery surface so that the brake pads can easily slide back and forth. So I reinstall the brackets and I spin the rotor just to make sure it's not rubbing on anything. So I always test these caliper pins just to make sure they're moving freely, and I add grease if necessary, but in this case they seems to be working fine, so I'm just gonna leave them. So I installed the new brake pads and now I'm just going to remove the bungee cord and reinstall the brake caliper. So I basically reinstalled the two 13mm bolts using the same technique that I used to remove them. So the brake on this side is done, so I just have to reinstall the wheel and then I'll be able to move to the other side. So doing the other side is basically the same procedure as this side. So this is where I'm going to end this video. If you like this video, hit that like button, and if you're interested in content like this, consider subscribing, and thanks for watching.